If you've always wanted to go to New York City, but the 20-hour flight and the steep airfare has put you off, then you're in luck, because today's video, I'm going to be showing you how you can use your points to fly business class to New York City for a fraction of the price. Usually for you to fly business class to America in a lie flat business class seat, it's going to set you back over $10,000. The good news is that when you use points, you can actually get to New York City in business class for under $500 in cash when you pay the rest with points. You don't need millions of points to do this either. In fact, from Australia to New York City, the entire way in business class is only going to be roughly 160,000 points. So now that we know it's realistic that we can get to New York City in business class, let's go in depth on how exactly we book it. So the first thing I want to talk about is how you actually get to New York City from Australia. Now there's a couple of ways that are not realistic and they're not very user friendly. And the final way is what I'll talk about most, and that's going to be how you actually get to New York City. So the first way is the most obvious way. That's just putting in Sydney to JFK. JFK is one of the popular airports in New York City, and Qantas actually have a direct route there that stops over in Auckland and it arrives in New York City. The issue with this route is that there's very little reward seats. For us to get to New York City, we are looking for a classic reward seat. And the bad news is that almost all the time there are no reward seats going from Sydney to JFK on the direct Qantas route. There is another way that you can get to America, which does complicate things too much. You can go from Australia to Los Angeles and stop over in Fiji. For me personally, unless I'm desperate, this is just a little bit too tricky. It's also a little bit unnecessary. I'll show you how you can get there a much better way. So the way that I go about getting to New York every time I fly there is by breaking the trip down into two bookings. The first booking will be from East Coast Australia, so Brisbane, Sydney, or Melbourne, flying to Los Angeles or flying to San Francisco. And then once I've arrived in Los Angeles or San Francisco, I'll then get another flight into JFK or EWR. These are both New York airports. So now that we know the route that we want to take, we want to go from Australia to Los Angeles or San Francisco, and then onwards to New York. Let's talk about which points we need in order to get us onto those flights. The first and most popular points that people are earning are Qantas points. If you just have Qantas points, that will be okay. Qantas points are really useful traveling within America because they do partner with American Airlines. But because Qantas have so many members in their frequent flyer program, there are a lot more demand for their flights to America. It just means that the availability for flights going to America are going to be a lot less compared to Velocity. In my experience, it's been a lot better having Velocity points going to America. I have found that there are a lot more flights going to America and back. And not only are there more flights, but there's more seats on the plane as well. So in my experience, I've seen Qantas usually release 2, maybe 3 reward seats on a flight, but I've seen Velocity release up to 9 seats on the same flight. This means if you're traveling with a family or you really want to increase your chances at getting to America, having Velocity points in terms of flying from Australia to Los Angeles or San Francisco, Velocity points are going to be a lot better. Now, the best strategy would be having some sort of membership points that allows you to transfer to Qantas and Velocity depending on which airline has the availability at the time. In my experience, I think the only membership points in Australia that give you this flexibility of transferring to Qantas and also Velocity are Amex Platinum membership points. Those are the points that I personally earn, and it just gives me the flexibility to transfer them to Qantas or Velocity whenever I need them. The good news is I can transfer from Amex to Qantas or Velocity almost instantly. That transfer takes just a couple of minutes, and then I can go ahead and book the flight knowing that there's availability. This is much better than earning a bunch of Qantas points only to find out that Virgin have the availability, and then you're stuck in Qantas's ecosystem because you can't transfer your points from Qantas to Velocity. So now that we know which points are the best for getting to New York City, let's talk about how many points we need. Because we're breaking this up into 2 flights, I'll talk about how many Qantas points you need and how many Velocity points you need. The first flight being Sydney, Brisbane, or Melbourne through to Los Angeles or San Francisco. With Qantas, you'll need 108,000 Qantas points plus $350 in flight taxes. If you have Velocity points, it's a little bit cheaper. For that same route, you're going to be spending 102,000 Velocity points and just $150 in flight taxes. With Qantas points, you can get this first flight with Qantas or American Airlines, and if you're using Velocity points, you'll be on United. The second flight from Los Angeles to San Francisco through to JFK or EWR with Qantas is going to set you back 54,000 points in business class. And I love this with America, but their flight taxes are really low. You're going to pay just $10 in flight taxes. With Velocity points, it's a little cheaper, but it's only cheaper because I couldn't find any business class seats at all going from Los Angeles or San Francisco through to New York. Because of this, I could only find the economy rate. In economy, going from Los Angeles or San Francisco through to New York, it's going to cost you 23,500 Velocity points. And again, super low taxes, just $15 in flight taxes. Now we know how to get to New York City. We know what points we should be earning and we know how many points we need. Let's talk about how we actually find the flights we can book. Now, because there's so many routes, so for example, you've got Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, flying into Los Angeles or San Francisco, and you've also got a couple of other variables like Qantas and Velocity. Instead of going on the Qantas or Velocity site and individually searching those routes and individually searching those dates, a much more efficient way to search that data is by using a tool called seats.aero. This third-party website scrapes all the data from Qantas and Velocity and gives you a nice searchable way to find all that information very, very quickly. What I would do if I'm looking to book this route is I would have a quick search to see which dates had availability from Australia to Los Angeles or San Francisco, and I would just get a general gist of the dates. For example, maybe May have a lot of flights, maybe July have a lot of flights, and maybe not so many in June. And then I would have a quick look at flights from Los Angeles and San Francisco to New York by typing in JFK and EWR, and I would also get a general gist of dates as well. What you want to do is match up the two flights so that they're fairly similar timing. You don't want to go through all that work of finding the first flight for the second flight to not match up. That's why for your initial search, I would keep everything quite broad. Just get a general gist of the dates, and then when you find certain months that have lots of availability, then try and match up the dates. Once you've found the seats and they match up perfectly, just go to the airline's website directly and book it from there. If you're using Amex Platinum membership points, you can leave the transfer from your Amex points to Qantas or Velocity fairly last minute. In my experience, they have transferred in just a couple of minutes, assuming that your account is already linked. We now know which route that we want to look for, what type of points we need, and how many of them are required. And lastly, we know how to search that data and find the flights we're after efficiently. If you want a booking walkthrough, leave a comment letting me know. And if you need more specific help, check the link in the description. Other than that, I will see you in the next video.